Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Barnett with Aljoya Thornton Place, and I am delighted to introduce to you Dick Carruthers, Seniors Real Estate Specialist with Windermere of over 30 years, who has joined us today to present Selling Your Home, a Guide for Seniors. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Dick.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for attending. As Michelle mentioned, I've been with Windermere for over 30 years, and my specialty is working with the senior demographics when it comes to their real estate needs. I'm a member of a seniors real estate specialist group, which is a group of nationwide agents who also specialize with all facets of what seniors tend to go through once they decide to make their next move. And there's a lot of education and whatnot that goes with it, especially if one's lived in their home for 40 or 50 years. It's a lot more involved than just putting a sign out and hoping things will happen. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of information about what the marketplace is doing. We'll talk about the steps in the process of getting your home ready to sell. We'll discuss a bit about how to approach pricing your home. And I've been fortunate to help a number of people move to Aljoya and other era living communities, providing them with the information I'm going to share with you today. So let's talk a little bit about what basic factors make up for a favorable home market for sellers. I think it's important to see what these are because, again, you want to be the best seller you can be and try to sell in a marketplace that's somewhat predictable in your favor. So currently, the cost to borrow money, the buyers to get a mortgage, that type of thing, we're at historic lows. It's in the 3% range, which really makes it very affordable, especially in our marketplaces, which tend to be a little pricier for the buyers to afford to get a mortgage. Plenty of mortgage money out there, not really a concern. As far as the prices of homes go, our prices currently are holding really pretty steady in the Seattle market. And as opposed to back in 2008 and 9, when we saw 30 to 40%, drops in value, even with the COVID situation we're in now, we're not seeing property values dropping much at all, if any. As far as the personal income goes, we've been reading a bit about the unemployment rates, et cetera. But we've been fortunate this time around that Seattle has, as you all know, a very large tech sector and other sectors where potential buyers are really paid quite well. And though they may not be at work, the majority are working at home and have really not seen a suffering in their income streams. And lastly, supply and demand. We currently have right now in the Seattle area about 1.2 months worth of inventory, which is really quite low. So it is still a seller's market. Each of your neighborhoods that you live in, of course, will have a different numbers attached to it, and depending on the price ranges. But again, it all is pretty favorable at this time. Okay. So when we look at kind of what's going on from a more market perspective, what we also know is that when it comes time to making a move, especially if you're your next chapter is going to a community or a major change, And as I mentioned, being a part of this national organization, they occasionally go out and take polls. They usually take about 700 people, polling them to figure out what's going through their mindsets when it comes to real estate. And oftentimes one of the questions that have been asked, and again, chronologically, the age group 72 to 85 is the age of the people that have been polled. And the question is asked, well, you've been thinking about moving. Do you need to move? You know, but what's holding you back? And what's been found is currently with the COVID situation, I have to think that that's holding a few people back, whether it's just, you know, due to the fact that interacting with people, or one's thinking that the marketplace is just horrible and it's worth waiting. The other number one, 32% of the people felt that just the sheer fear of change. Been on a routine for decades, and all of a sudden with the change coming, a little bit of fear sets in. The next one is fear of downsizing, packing, and sorting. And I must say, in all the years that I've helped people make their moves, I would have to say that fear of downsizing, packing, and sorting is right up there at the top of the list. It does entail a few steps, and sometimes, you know, it can get frustrating, and you just want to pull a blanket over your head and say, well, I'll put it off and wait till tomorrow. Next one is more on the, you know, am I going to miss my home? And am I making the right decision? Well, what I have found is that in making the right decisions, we all need a certain amount of information. And oftentimes it's the fact that you haven't gotten enough information to address your particular situation. So it's sometimes easier just to, you know, sit back and not do anything. Lastly, and interesting enough, financial concerns, only 4% of the group said that financial concerns were, you know, on the top of the list. Now, if you've been out visiting or looking at different communities, such as Aljoya, I mean, they're not inexpensive, obviously, but again, when it came time to really tap into the people, they had financial concerns weren't a big deal. So in the same poll, the same folks were asked, well, what are the top reasons that you're thinking about to consider making a move? Well, one was maintaining the home. 42% of the participants said, well, just keeping up my home. And, you know, it can kind of be two ways. One is, even if you can afford gardeners and roof people, et cetera, it does wear on one to look out and see that there's constantly something to do. The second one was health issues. And from my own personal experience, I have worked with people who, unfortunately, for whatever the situation, have to make a move quickly because of a health issue that has come up. And what I can guarantee is that if you can make your decisions for a move under your own steam and in a logical manner, it will be much less stressful for you. If you have to move, you can't, you know, come back to the house, you can sometimes make decisions that you regret. So again, I think it's a key factor to think about. Downsizing. Interesting enough, the home's too large. Not that many people felt that. And yet when I visit people who there's, you know, a couple living in a home that's 4,000 square feet, everybody's long gone. I think they've basically gotten used to the space, though they don't use it much. And it's more the downsizing component that is running into this. And lastly is loneliness. And the reason I bring this up is it's pretty much proven that as human beings, we need interaction with other people, whether it's family, friends, etc., to stay healthy. And so if for no other reason, moving to a community where you don't have to meet everybody, but you can become engaged, it'll keep you healthier longer. Any questions, Michelle? Can you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you. No questions at this time. And again, a reminder for the few that have just joined us in the past 5 minutes or so, there is a chat feature in Zoom at the bottom of your screen. You could just click on that and send chats that way. Or sorry, send questions that way. Okay. Thank you, Dick.
So what we're going to start discussing is kind of the beginning of the process in, you've decided that you do wish to make a move. So where do we start from here? Generally, sellers will, once they've kind of made the decision, they'll decide to reach out and talk to either a broker like myself who's been referred to them. They may have a friend in the family who's a broker, real estate agent. And one of the first things that I think is important, and if it's important to you, it's a question that really should come up at the beginning of your engaging in conversation with whoever you're meeting with. And that is, it used to be years ago, actually decades ago, that because the seller was paying the commission/brokerage fee, all agents represented the seller. Well, things have changed dramatically over the years, and currently our situation is the following. When a buyer decides that they wish to enter the market to buy a home, they will go and enter into a contract with a buyer's agent from whatever company they wish to be in. Sometimes it's the same office that I may happen to be in, but they strictly represent the buyer. You have your seller's agent who strictly represents you only. And then in our state, we're allowed as real estate agents to represent both parties in a transaction. And this is called dual agency. I personally do not practice representing both parties in a transaction because I've not ever seen it truly work. In other words, let's say you and I have met, you're sharing things with me, and if I'm representing the buyer, I've got to equally share everything. I know that tax accountants, the IRS, attorneys, none of those professions represent both parties. So I don't happen to practice that, but many brokers, many real estate agents do. So if that's a concern of yours, I'd recommend that conversation be addressed up front rather than when the person sits down, has an offer on your home, perhaps it's a very low offer, but there's a very strong urging of you to take it. That's hardly the time for them to go, well, who really do you represent? Okay. For you to have a successful real estate transaction, I think that communication is the most critical component, and that's the communication with you and the person that you've chosen to be your representative and advocate all along the way. Because when it comes time to make decisions, you want to feel comfortable that you've been informed of all the things that are going on and whatnot. So what I personally do is I have 3 guarantees that I provide to the client. The first one is communication and activity report. Again, once you while you're getting ready to go on the market, there's a lot of things that need to be done. And oftentimes as an agent, I'll help my clients from the very beginning, set things up, supply them with vendors, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you're on the market, it's really important that you and I communicate as often as it takes for you to be comfortable. And whether it's email, a phone call, weekly, sometimes daily, it's really whatever works for you, because you need to hear exactly what kind of activity is going on with your home. How many agents have come through? Did they have buyers with them? What did the buyers' feedback? And of course, as the messenger, it's my job to relay that information to you and not really sugarcoat it, because again, you want to make sure when the time comes, you're doing what's right for yourself. I also offer what's called a quick cancel guarantee. And what this is that it's not very often, but I have had situations where we go on the market and something happens with a health issue. Perhaps a family member has an issue that comes up, and it's just not the right time to be selling the home. You need to take a pause to address more important matters. So my philosophy is we have the conversation, and if it seems appropriate, we cancel the listing and you're free to go on your way, no strings attached. In our industry, there's another school of thought that I'd like to get paid for the time I've put in, the materials. 2, I'll take your home off the market, but if you happen to sell it to somebody in the next month or 2, even if it's your adult child, or a friend, you owe a commission. I think it's a much cleaner way to approach it. Just cancel it and you're done. I also offer, for 2 reasons, a senior discount on the brokerage fee, commission. It's $1,000 that I will reduce my fee by at closing. And what this does is I know that you're going to run into a few expenses getting the home ready. And so it's a little bit of a help in deferring. And I also extend it because it's a thank you for attending the webinar. Of course, in other times, we're giving seminars at the communities. So, if you're attending, so I think it's an important way of saying thank you for using my services.
Dick?
Yes.
We did have a question from a participant today, and she's asking, how do we find out if a realty office is a dual agency?
You need to ask the agent that you're sitting down with. And you need to ask them if they practice being a dual agent. And the agent should tell you candidly, well, yes, I do practice that. Again, it's not a company-wide scenario, because it's a state law that allows us as agents to do that. So you basically need to ask, and if they say, no, I don't practice it, you should believe them. I mean, it'd be, it'd be a pretty rough start if they're starting out by not telling you the truth. But it's the agent that you're interviewing or wanting to hire. It's not really the real estate company, because each agent is independent when it comes to how they want to handle their business.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, I talked a bit about communication, and system I use, and that I recommend that that you use it, is I've designed a questionnaire. It's like a 4-page questionnaire that it helps identify what your wants, your needs are, and what experiences you've had with real estate. The goal being is that all parties involved, be it a spouse, significant other, adult children, who's ever in the process of helping you make decisions during this time, should get involved right up front to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I put up here a couple of sample questions. One's considering a community is, do you have a financial advisor who, can help you decide, can you afford to move to a community? Because again, if you find the right apartment and you get all excited and then you find out you can't afford it, it's not a pretty picture. The other question that is at the very end of the questionnaire is, assume it's 6 months from now. Describe the perfect situation for you. Okay. So again, to start at the beginning, what I recommend, and it's not mandatory, but each decision maker gets a copy of the questionnaire and they fill it out separately from each other. And then you get together, they can share the information with themselves and eventually with me. Again, the idea is no surprises and whatnot. And what I have found is that the majority of people are pretty much on the same page when it comes to this. But I have also run into a situation, and one of the last ones was, went out to the house, met a couple that I had actually met at a seminar. And when it came to the assume it's 6 months from now, the wife happened to have written down, looking forward to not cooking, looking forward to not keeping up the big house, would really like to start getting out a little more and attending the various other items in her life that she would like to do. And I looked over to her husband, and his reply was, well, I'm looking forward to getting out in my shop here this next spring and starting to work on building a little kayak as a hobby. And so I'm looking at that and I'm going, oh my gosh. I said, sir, you don't want to move, do you? He says, no, I'm not moving. She wants to move. Well, think if that had come up while we're sitting at their home signing the listing agreement or whatnot. So they had their discussion, and a few months later, I received a call, and they had decided to move to a community. But again, this works great for adult children, because there are times when adult children can say, hey, why don't you just keep the house for whatever reason and don't move. Same with financial advisors. I mean, they're all very good and pretty straightforward. But again, occasionally you could run into one that's pretty conservative and wants to earn return on managing your money as opposed to watching your money go out to the market. So again, I think it's a fun thing to do during this process. All right, let's talk about steps in the preparation of getting your home for sale. So step number one would be when you look at how we live in a home and how we sell a home for top dollar can be two different things. Most buyers make their buying decisions based on emotion from the minute they drive up to the home, and then they rationalize their purchase afterwards. So basically what we want to do is to get your home to a point where the buyer can mentally move into your home from the minute they drive up to the front to after they're walking through and taking a look on the inside. The last thing that as a seller you need to be aware of is that your home's going to be viewed through various sets of eyes. One is that, of course, the eyes of the buyer. What do they see and how do they feel when they come to the home? Secondly, how is your home perceived by the real estate agents that are looking at your home? And both of those first exposure to your home is pretty much through the internet. That is why when it comes time to professionally prepare your home from an advertising point of view, everything is done by professionals. The photography, the websites that it all gets swept to. It's all very critical. Because what it's been found is that if you don't have certain components set up in that arena, the buyers will take 2 or 3 seconds and then they'll just go right by your listing and move on to the next. The next set of eyes is the home inspector. Most buyers will have a home inspection done. And if they're getting a mortgage on their home, a bank appraiser will come out and look at the home as well. So those are the different sets of eyes, and we want to make sure that we've looked at the home through those and do the best we can to get it ready for market. So,
Dick?
yes.
I did have someone make a comment and ask the question. She says, I recently spent $78,000 to get my rental house ready for a sale as advised by my realtor. It makes me want to ask what things I should do even years ahead so I can enjoy them that will count when I do sell.
Okay, so you put in $78,000 into the home recently, and she's now going to live there and wants to know what else to do to enjoy her home?
Yeah, it sounds like she did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Unless she wants to clarify.
Okay. Well, the first thing, I guess, when you're looking at the house is, and the first step for everyone would be you walk around the outside of the house and do a visual inspection. Again, I don't know what type of improvements were made, but you want to walk around the outside of the home to make sure that the roof is in good shape. Your roof should have at least 5 years of life or more left on it. Otherwise, it may be called out as an item to fix or replace. Paint. If you're going to paint your home, it's a good, pick a good season, pick a appropriate color, and enjoy. Enjoy what you have, because the paint job will last a few years. Also look at the gardens. Should we, oftentimes when you moved into the home, you may have a bay window, right, in your living room. The camellia bush was at the bottom of the window. Well, now the camellia bush has blocked the window, and you can't see out. So those type of things on the exterior pretty much have a payback to them. As far as interior goes, the items that you have chosen to do or that you would choose to do would be items that generally create a return on your investment. If you're going to sell right away, if it's not going to create a return on your investment, then sometimes it's not worth doing. Now, if you're going to do improvements and stay a while, well, some of those improvements could be remodeling kitchens and baths. There's a return on that, depending on how much budget. You have old hardwood floors, have them refinished and live with them. Again, it's while you're living there, it's a little harder to do a few of the projects because it gets pretty expensive. You've got to move out, for instance, for a couple of weeks while hardwood floors are curing, that type of thing. Are those is that the kind of question? Am I addressing it?
Yeah, so she wanted to add the $78,000 was needed to sell the rental, in which it has sold, but she was thinking about for selling her home in a couple years.
Oh, okay. If your agent in getting the rental ready, and I don't know what improvements you made, but a similar approach with the checklist, walk through the home. If you have ideas, one is I would recommend you share the ideas. I've met many people who aren't ready to sell. Probably I'd say on average when I do meet somebody, they're 6 months, 8 months, away from doing something. But I'll often have a consultation at the house, so they'll say, well, I'm thinking of doing this and this. What do you think? Well, I think it's a good idea. I think there's a payback to it. And other times, it's like, well, Dick, I'm thinking of putting in the gold-plated fixtures, in my kitchen and bathrooms. What do you think? Well, it's personal. If you like it, by all means, but it probably won't attract the greatest number of buyers or give you a return on how much you spent on it. So it's a similar process, I would think, in determining what it took to get your rental home on the market. It's your personal home, so you have to take into consideration if you're going to do some major things, how is that all staged to work out? Because the rental home, I'm assuming, was vacant when you went in and did all these projects. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So again, just to recap, we meet, look around the outside of the home, walk through the inside of the home with the same set of eyes. In other words, if there's real problems with furnace, some things that electrical panels, if you still own a home where you've got the little fuses in the box out of the back porch, it's an older home, those type of things, then it's probably worth getting some prices on those things and then decide, based on the prices, what are some things that we probably should address so that they don't get called out by an appraiser or a home inspector. So that's, again, both. But the idea is to address it with a list, look at prices, is it worth doing? And again, for each person, and a lot of people I work with, it's not worth redoing $100,000 in a kitchen, brand new bathrooms. Generally, the payback is not enough, and the time it takes. I mean, to do those kind of major projects with the way the market is for labor, it could be a year before you're, getting in and starting to get things done. So the next part of the process is we're going to talk a bit about I call it staging your home and downsizing. Okay. So selecting what to keep, what to pack, and what to move is a very it's a critical part of the process. Some of the things to think are, does the room feel comfortable and inviting when someone walks in? What does the furniture in the room do to enhance the feeling and size of the room? Now, if you're moving to another location and then coming back and addressing the house, I'll be honest with you, it's a much easier way to approach it, but not everybody can do that. So if they're going to be in their home while the home is on the market, sometimes some various furniture and things need to be moved around a bit. Because many times I'll walk into a home, well, again, picture window, or you'll look in the dining room and there's, a massive hutch that you inherited. Well, you can't see the room because the hutch is so large. So discussion needs to be had about how comfortable you are and just how far we want to take that. And then lastly, when it comes to the actual staging, you have, again, various options. Using your own furniture. I have had clients move, take a few things with them to where they're going, and then go back and move the rest of the things once the home is under contract or sold, all the way out to should we move everything gone from the house and hire a professional stager to come in, and oftentimes what you see on HGTV. But I will share with you that what you see on HGTV are these home shows. The prices that they're looking at and the time frames that they seem to be doing in television are really not reality when it comes to trying to do the same thing here in Seattle. It takes much longer, it's much more expensive here. So let's talk a little about the downsizing component, because again, I think it's for most people, the most daunting component of the entire move. And there's two factors that tend to come into it. One is the psychological aspect. You're in your home, you're going through all these various items that perhaps the apartment that you're going to or whatnot does not have enough space for all of it. And then kicks in the letting go. All of a sudden, I've seen many times when I'll pay a visit, talk about this component of the move, and to say, oh, yep, I'm working on it and whatnot. Well, I'll pay a visit a month later, and I've seen not only the same boxes that they were packing in the same place, but the ones that they actually closed up, put it in another room, and then opened them up and found themselves looking through the past. And again, it's all well and good, but unless you have some discipline, it's very difficult to let go, and everybody has to let go of things when they decide to do this. There's also the physical challenges that accompany downsizing. It's a lot of work to pack boxes, to get up into the attic, to take out Christmas decorations that perhaps you haven't seen in 3 or 4 years. There's also, it's physically challenging. And I'm here to say that there is no glamour in trying to save a little bit of money and falling off your ladder or trying to get up and clean your own gutters. Yes, we want to be prudent with our spending, but it's much more costly if you end up having to call the ACAR and go to the hospital. So why do we procrastinate when it comes to downsizing? And who will help? Again, it's because it's a lot of work. If you happen to have found a community you want to move to, they have a protocol and when monies are due and when the apartment's available. So for many, the first inclination is, well, if you have family, my family will help. And having gone through this numerous times, I have found that in general, families they have a lot of goodwill they want to put into the situation. But oftentimes what will happen is family will decide, hey, we're going to come over Saturday morning. They bring a cup of coffee, perhaps some pastries or whatnot. And immediately, with good intentions, the family members start going through all your stuff, all the stuff you've accumulated for decades. And then take a break for lunch. And as the hours go by, the situation starts getting more intense. You'll be sitting back going, well, wait a minute, that's my stuff, that's important. And the family members will be saying, well, you don't need this. Not that that'll happen to you, but it happens quite a bit. So if you're going to go that route, be prepared. There are today, they're called downsizing companies or packing and sorting companies. And these are entities that I highly recommend, who will come over to your home as many hours as you'd like to hire them. And they will help you go through room by room and determine what furniture is going to your new place, what do you need to keep and don't need to keep. And they're just well worth their weight in gold. They tend to be able to mirror the type of person you are so that it's as less amount of stress as possible. And there's different companies out there. I know Aljoya Thornton Place has a company, HB, that I'm assuming they're still working with, that offers that service as well as a moving service. And when it comes to the cost, they're less expensive than a moving company. The next one is estate sales. And when it comes to estate sales, you need to be aware that estate sale companies, the good ones, they'll take about 50% of what they take in when it comes time for selling your item. In today's world, if you're looking at your items and you have a lot of items, sometimes I'll recommend that you have an estate salesperson over just to take a peek as to whether you have enough things to sell. If you do this, be prepared that in today's world, the younger demographic, younger buyers, your children, younger children, etc., they're not interested in the mint and china that you might have. They're really not interested in the silverware that you have. They're actually taking those silverware and they're melting it down for silver value today. So a lot of the things that have been special to you, furniture and whatnot, the buying public, when it comes to these estate sales, they're not buying it. So again, important to kind of check it out first. The other reason for doing that is that what is selling today is mid-century modern furniture. I don't know if you all remember back in the day, there was a candy called Pez. There were those little dispensers with they pop the little head up, and out pops the candy. Well, a collection of Pez dispensers are worth thousands of dollars. And yet, again, your mint in China, unless it's true antique value, is not, no one's buying it today. Then the other is charity. The charity, if you're going to do it yourself, it's getting harder to find. There are some good churches, there are some good other places available, but they're getting much pickier on how quality the items have to be for them to even take them. So going to the Goodwill, yes, they'll take items, but they're not taking nearly what they used to. And then lastly, once you have, again, donated, given to family, or sold, now the rest of you have stuff. And there are then haulers or disposal companies available today who will come out. They'll make it all go away. They charge by the hour and the truckload. And they will, again, they'll come out and give you a quote. And then they're responsible for cleaning out the rest of your things. And they have entities that they donate to. The last resort is the landfill. And sometimes you just have to do that. Disposal companies will also take paint, latex paint off your hands. They do charge per PM, but if you've got a garage full of paint, latex paint, and you want to deal with it yourself, then you've got to uncap, open up paint, put kitty litter or some other material in the cans, and let them completely dry before you can take them to a recycle site. Any questions, Michelle?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. I'd like to then, again, talk about the home inspection. We've touched on getting one's home aesthetically, mechanically ready to go on the market, dealing with your personal items, kind of how the downsizing generically unfolds. The next one is the home inspection. There are two inspections out there that either the buyers will pay for and perform on your home as part of the contract, or occasionally homeowners will decide that they want to do the inspections themselves so that they know exactly what's going on and what they're offering. The first one, the home inspection, it entails them going through everything: roofs, heating, conditioning, anything that has to do mechanically with the house. They don't tend to look at the carpet, and they don't come up with a value of your home. This is strictly taking the home apart, not physically, but piece by piece, so that the buyer can see exactly what they're getting into. The second inspection is the sewer line inspection. They've been doing these for a while, but again, what they do is they come out, they access your sewer line, and they run a camera down through the sewer line and out to the street where it hooks into the main sewer. The idea is to see what conditions it's in. One hopes that, if it's a much older home, there are occasionally a few cracks, a few roots. What one's hoping is that you don't find a major break in it. And if you live uphill, you probably wouldn't know that you have a major break in it. And of course, if you're living in the flats, you would know because your sewer line would back up. So those are the two inspections. And once the buyer has done those, they have an option to decide to ask you to fix things. They can ask you for monetary remuneration, or they can decide during this process to not go forward with the transaction. You as the seller are not, you don't have to sometimes do what they want and they're asking you to do. It's a negotiable situation. The only time it becomes non-negotiable, again, is if you have a bank appraiser come out. They're appraising the property, they look up, they see that the roof, has layers of moss or that it's pretty much in horrible condition. If an appraiser calls for a new roof, and the lender will only lend the money, we have an option to go back and maybe perhaps talk to a buyer to see if they might get involved. But we're not in a position to tell the bank, well, no, lend the money, but I'm not going to put the house in order. So I guess one question that comes up, or that may come up, is do you as a seller have to do these inspections yourself? Two schools of thought. When you do these inspections yourself prior to going on the market, you then are in a position to have to disclose on our Washington State disclosure forms that sellers fill out every defect or flaw that you that came up. That has to be disclosed to the buyer. The other school of thought is if you have to know, exactly what's going on to be comfortable and sleep at night, or you want to do these so that you can go ahead and try to fix it all before you go on the market, then by all means, I'd say that majority of my clients end up not doing total inspections as long as they're aware that how the process could unfold. The only inspection that would be prudent is probably the sewer line inspection, because again, we have no idea what's in our sewer lines. But I will say, if you have a major break where it enters the public right away, it can be $20,000, $30,000 to fix the sewer. So if you're one that wants at least to check that out, the test's only about $225. So it's an inexpensive investment for peace of mind or no peace of mind, depending on what comes up. Okay, so the question is, after looking at all these things, shall we fix up and address a lot of issues, or shall we sell it more in an as-is condition? Most people sell in an as-is condition. Now again, as-is doesn't mean what it used to mean decades ago. As-is means you've cleaned up your home, you're presenting it in as best a light as possible, but you're not going to recarpet, do new kitchens, do that type of thing. You're going to let the home buyer. And again, there's some structural issues of importance. Probably have to look at those and address. And then when it comes to pricing the home, again, a little bit of how much work is needed will have to be reflected in the asking price. So let's talk about pricing one's home. Okay. When your home goes on the market, the average market time today in most neighborhoods has been anywhere from 12 days to 30 days on the market. So not a 5 or 6 month to sell your home. Again, and what happens is this is chart here showing you the activity curve and what will happen when your home hits the market. In the first 3 weeks, the first week or two, especially, you're going to get the greatest number of qualified buyers with their agents come and look at your home. So it's really imperative to set an asking price that not only reflects the condition of your home, but reflects what's going on in your neighborhood. And how we determine that is by performing a comparative market analysis for you. And what that entails is, of course, looking at your home and then going out and searching for, seeing what homes are for sale currently, what homes are under contract with a buyer, but they haven't closed yet, and what have the sales been. And we try to compare your home in vintage, condition, view similarity, a number of those items. And it starts showing a range that comes out. And then we zero in on to probably the 6, 7 homes that seem to be most comparable. The idea, ideally, is that we try to stay within a half-mile radius, again, within your neighborhoods. Because a lot of our Seattle neighborhoods, depending on where you live, a neighborhood like Ballard, or Magnolia, Queen Anne, there's like 4 or 5 different places in those neighborhoods that all have different value systems. So what we try to do is stay within a certain radius so it most reflects on what you truly have. In other words, if you don't have waterfront, we don't use waterfront as a comparison, that type of thing. So once we look through all of that, we look at what the list price were and the sales prices, so you can get a look at what to expect and what to receive. We also look at the number of days that these properties were on the market before they sold, or the pending sales and the active sales. And the reason being, again, if you have nowhere to go and you've got plenty of time or just kind of a place to go, that's one thing. But if you have received a call from perhaps a community such as Aljoya, and most of these communities have waiting lists now. And what happens is you'll get a call. Sometimes you least expect it, and boom, you get the call that a place that you truly want has come up. Well, what you need to know is how long are things taking. So in other words, if you've got X number of days to complete your transaction to make it work to move, well, then you need to see, well, is the marketplace doing the same? If you've got 30 days to move, but your particular location is taking 60 days on average to sell, well, we need to be cognizant of that and look a little more closely at perhaps what the pricing is and some other factors. Okay, that pretty much completes what I had to share with you today. As I mentioned, I'm happy to provide you with information about what's going on in your neighborhood as far as sales and whatnot goes. And so it's a little more on an individual basis. If you supply Michelle with your address and contact information, I'm happy to provide that. There's no charge. Or again, if you have other questions, the other presentation that I normally give at the communities, we touch on a few other things and whatnot. But these are really, I think, the most important aspects of getting you started on the thought process of selling a home. So thank you for attending. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dick. We really appreciate your time today and all the knowledge you have shared with us during your presentation. I just want to take this time to ask if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask. And remember, you can type in your question using the chat feature. And I'll give it about a minute or so in case a question comes through.
I did see somebody that said raise their hand, but I didn't get their name. If you're still there, now's the time to check in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was wondering, since 2 of us on this phone call have really unique houses that you're not going to find a comp for, could you talk about that?
Yes. Now, as far as unique, are you talking unique in architectural style, age, or the settings and location that you're in?
Architectural styles and like, for example, I have a studio above a garage plus a place a hot tub can be. There just aren't other places that have that sort of thing to compare to.
Yeah, well, interesting enough, Catherine, it is Catherine,
Yes.
correct? Okay, interesting enough, though it seems challenging at the moment to find things, interesting enough, when you really start researching a marketplace, both homes that have sold without going to the market or homes that have sold, uh, we tend to be able to find some pretty similar situations, whether it's, again, a legal accessory dwelling unit, uh, home offices. In certain neighborhoods, they have a little outbuilding, right? Sometimes we have to go a little farther in circumference within the area you live in.
Yeah.
And then, we look a little farther out, and then we have to kind of do some adjusting based on, those factors. It's not as easy, unfortunately, as just having, a house 4 doors down, being exactly like yours. Depending on lot sizes, we look at that, take all these different factors into consideration, and it's quite honestly or candidly pretty rare that have not been able to come up, for the client, of that value that not only will make sense, but that your home's going to have a bank appraisal will appraise at the value.
If it's really unique, then which of these appraisers would be the best person to help you?
Well, there's when it comes to appraisers, what happens is, of course, if a person's going to get a loan, then the lender goes to a pool of appraisers, because since the last recession, banks are not able to personally have conversations with appraisal companies. They go in, the appraisal gets assigned to a certain appraiser, and then he or she will come out, look at the home, measure the home, all those type of things. And they'll make their adjustments based on, again, what they feel a view's worth, or if it's a larger property. So they have their methodology. There are a few appraisers out there you could just hire just to come out, but that appraisal cannot be used, if you put your home on the market and get a buyer. The buyer has to pay for their own appraisal. And the other methodology is you have, someone like myself who's, again, and I don't know where you live. If you're in an area that I don't know, I'll be quite candid with you. But I can come out, do a pretty detailed analysis, and very rarely do I miss the market by more than 1 or 2%.
Thank you.
Dick, I did have a couple questions come in from one participant. 2 questions. She asked, do you have recommendations for a downsizing company? And are you hesitant to use an estate sale organization?
I do have recommendations for a couple. I've got names of people that I've personally used for downsizing companies, and what I try to do is to match the personality of the client, or the person who wants to talk, and downsizing people, because everybody's got a style, and some downsizers, they get it done and they're very good, but they go very fast. And sometimes going very fast isn't, because I know that your community, I think, is still using or recommending a company, correct, Michelle? HB?
Yeah, so we do have preferred movers for Aljoya when someone does make a move, HB Move Management. They offer a lot of services that I won't go into detail, but if you would like more information on what they offer, you could go visit their website. Again, that's HB Move Management.
Yeah, and then again, I've got other names of other companies that are a little bit smaller, but they take you through the whole process all the way to, you know, having the moving company come. And if you wanted to send me an email, I'd be happy to provide you those. I'm not really in a position in this setting to get my hands on it. So, you know, if you'd like to, my email address is Dick C. That's DICKC @windermere.com. And if you contact Michelle at the community, I'm sure she'd be happy to pass on the easiest way to contact me. And I'm happy to provide you with some other resources.
Yes, I will. All right, well, it looks like I don't have any further questions, so I think we are just ready, about ready to wrap up. So I am going to email a copy of these slides to all of you, including Dick's contact information in case you didn't catch it. We'll also include a survey sheet that we'd like you to fill out to tell us about your experience on the Zoom event today. We are experimenting with the way to present information during COVID restrictions, so we'd love to hear from you on how we can make this an even better experience. So with that, my name is Michelle Barnett with Aljoya Thornton Place, and thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.